Hello makers, welcome to Marvellous Makes. This is my crafty space on the internet where I'll be talking to you about all my makings. I'm coming to you from the south coast of Newfoundland, a beautiful island off the east coast of Canada. In each episode, I'll be talking about my own designs where I'll give you coupon codes, and I'll be talking about knitting and crochet patterns I am currently working on or have finished. You can find chapters in the progress bar where you can easily locate segments you may be looking for now or at the end of the podcast if you want to go back to find something. Who knit you? AKA introduce yourself. In the comments below, tell me about yourself. Tell me where you're from, if you like to knit, if you like to crochet, if you do both, if you do other crafts. Basically, just let me know about yourself. Got me duds on, aka what I'm wearing. So here in Newfoundland, we use the term got my duds on, or got your duds on. Duds meaning clothes. It's just kind of a Newfie slang. So what I'm wearing is the Rose of Lavender shawl. I knit this in 2019 actually. It's wool but cotton. It's actually a 48% wool merino, 32% cotton, and 20% alpaca. So while there's some wool and alpaca in there, it's actually quite cool, not only because of the cotton, but the construction of the yarn. It's called Vidalana Lofti DK. So it's also not a real heavy yarn in the way of weight. But it's also quite lacy, as you could probably tell. So I'll just bring this a little closer for you. And it's not real deep, but it's quite long. So it's more of a scarf or shawlette, if you will. And it starts off with these, I believe it's more of a faux cable and twisted stitches, and then moves into this mesh lace with a peacoat bind off, which I absolutely loved knitting this. Sail, also known as Cast Ons. So what I've cast on, I'll say in the near or sort of recent past, just because I've been knitting for many years, and obviously I can't show you everything I've cast on and necessarily everything I'm working on, because I'm a person who has a lot of different projects on the go at one time. So I'm just going to tell you sort of what I'm actively working on, what I'm really sort of focusing on. So what I'm focusing on here lately, or will be putting most of my attention to, is the Ranunculus. Now, if you haven't heard of this, where have you been? This shirt, sweater, crop top, I mean, people knit it in so many different ways. I've knit it before. This is my second one. You can use everything from like a thick woolly wool to like a lace weight mohair. You could do it in so many different fabrics and yarns. So what I'm actually knitting mine in is this yarn, but not this colorway. I'll show you the colorway in a minute. It's called It's a Wrap, and it's actually 50% cotton and 50% acrylic. I bought this this particular yarn for this particular shirt in, let me see now, probably 4 or 5 months ago in Michael's. I just happened to be walking through. I was looking for a storage container, and it was just on a clearance shelf for $5, I think, a ball, and I bought 2 balls. And so I'm knitting mine in kind of a color block fashion, and I'm holding 2 strands together to make roughly a DK. This is what I'm getting so far. So obviously you start up here. If you've knit this before, sorry, the color seems to be going a little bit off. And there we go. And yeah, so I don't know if you can see quite on the end. It's going into this really dark brown. I mean, at first glance I thought it was actually black, but it seems to be more of like a really dark chocolate brown. So that is what I hope to finish up soon. I'm in love. I'm gonna knit this like a long t-shirt length. Like I want it to at least in the front at least go to like lower hip, and in the back I think I might make the back a little longer by doing some short rows. And the sleeves, I'm going to do long sleeves, and then I think I might do like a puff sleeve. So what I'll do is I'll just knit straight down, no decreases, till I get kind of like the sleeve actually, till I get to about here, and then I'll decrease my stitches in half and then do my ribbing. So I think that's what I'll do. And I did a twisted rib on this, and I just did long tail cast on. I didn't do the cast on they suggested in the pattern. A lot of people just do a regular long tail cast on, but that's what I did on my first one, and that's what I did on this one. My first one I will show you at another time, just for the sake of time at the moment, but that one I used DK and mohair and came up with a less sheer shirt, because this one's sort of sheer. I would wear a tank top underneath it, but the other one, while it's not sheer, it's actually cropped, so I would wear it over a dress. So that is my Ranunculus by Midori Hirose, and I think that's how you say it. I may have butchered that. Yarn is Rhichard, it's a wrap, and the fiber is 50% cotton, 50% acrylic, as I had said. And I would say I'm going to use most of 2 balls, which there's quite a bit of yardage in here, but I'm also doing a long version and long sleeves. And what you'll notice is it goes from one color to another, and I would say there's probably close to equal amounts of color in each ball, and it doesn't actually gradiate. It doesn't actually just stripe as such. It actually is tied together, which I didn't realize when I bought it till I started working with it. Then I realized it's tied together. So what I did was wound them in balls separately, so like all the light blue, then all the dark teals, and all the brown, just because then I can weigh it out and know, okay, well, if I use this much, I'll have this much left over for my sleeves. So it just gives me that much insurance that I'm not going to run out and not have enough to finish my sleeves or to make my sleeves the way I want them or what have you. So that's what I'm doing with that fun. Is my Love Lace Socks by Jooles Hill. The yarn is Zen Garden yarns. It's merino, cashmere, and nylon. Just going to pop this sock on a sock blocker to show you here. So I have one done and one partly done. Mostly done. Well, I'll say halfway done. Because tonight I'm going to turn the heel and work up the leg. So I'll give you a close-up. So you start down here. Now I did my own toe and heel pattern from my even heel sock pattern, which is on Ravelry and Etsy. And anyways, in the pattern, which I won't tell you all the details because it's a paid for pattern, she has you work from here up, doing this reverse stockinette stitch. She talks about it in her podcast, so it's nothing that she hasn't already said publicly. And then when you work up here, I went straight into the ribbing. I will talk about that part in a later segment. So both the yarns are Zen Garden yarns. If I can find the colorway names, I will pop them on the screen. If not, Zen Garden yarns Serenity 20, I believe, is the base, and it's got merino and cashmere and nylon. I know that much. And this is the ball that I'm working from here now. The colors are just beautiful. I love it. And the green is actually yarn left over from previous socks that I made. These socks are part of the Rainbow Socks Chronicles yarns, which I will talk about in a later segment as well. Get or done by, also known as works in progress. So what I'm working on, and it's kind of one of these things that may take a while to do, something that isn't a new cast on, and may or may not be finished in the near future is how I'm kind of using this segment. So what that is the Purl Soho half and half triangle wrap. I'm actually using this exact yarn. I don't think I'm going to use all the yarn. I have, I think, three balls of this. This is my third. And again, like I said, you have to know that it's going to be tied together as opposed to just seamlessly move into the next color. So there's a lot of ends that I'm going to have to weave in, and because it's cotton and acrylic, it's going to leave quite a bit of a tail to weave in, just because I don't want it to work itself out when I'm washing it. So this is actually a free pattern, and what you do is you cast on along, in this case, the blue edge here, and then you're knitting in short rows that start off very long and get shorter and shorter and shorter. And then once you get down to like your last couple of stitches, you'll end up with something like this. And then you start working short rows, going back in the other direction, but they get longer and longer and longer. This light blue section, it's moving into this teal section, and that's where your rows get longer and longer. So let's see how this goes here now, right? So I would say this will take me the entirety of the cowl to finish. There's about a month and maybe a week, give or take, left to the cowl. And I'll talk about that cowl in a later segment as well. I'm really enjoying knitting it. The only modifications I've done is I've decided to do German short rows, which Caddy Jack's Knits has done as well. What else have I done? So on the last stitch, when you're getting to the outside edge of the wrap, I slip the last stitch with the yarn in the front, and then when I start the row going back, I just knit the stitch and keep knitting across. And that's the modifications I've done for this. I'll have all my information as to like what needles and things like that on my Ravelry and in the show notes below. If there's something I missed, just message me, let me know that you want to know something, and if I have the information, I'll certainly get back to you and let you know. Oh me nerves, aka mistakes. So this segment is kind of like, if you've ever listened to the Knit More Girls, it's their segment of when knitting attacks. So in my case, I'm calling it Oh me nerves, because here in Newfoundland, if something is causing you troubles, difficulty doing something, maybe there's mistakes in your work, something like that, we say oh me nerves because you're frustrated. So I will point out an obvious mistake, and obvious if you know the pattern. So there's green, right? There's this lovely purpley color, more green, lovely purpley color, and there's supposed to be some more green here. And I totally zipped past it, like just kept knitting. I was like, alright, the sock's long enough, I'm going to do my ribbing. Just went right ahead and did it, and afterwards when I cast on for the second sock, and I had brought up the pattern just to make sure that I was doing this part here correctly, I realized, oh, there's supposed to be something else before the ribbing. Totally zip past it. I'm just going to keep going with it. I still like the socks. I'll probably make them again in a different color with the actual pattern, But I'm happy with them, so I'm just going to keep them the way they are. Goddard Scald, aka Published Designs. So here in Newfoundland we say Goddard Scald, like something is perfect, it's just the way you want it. So this is my most recent design. This sock is actually a little bit big for the sock blocker because it's a sock for my husband and they don't make sock blockers that big. So this is actually for my husband, like I said, who is a size 16 men's. So it's not going to fit the sock blocker. I might see if I can get custom sock blockers made, you know, just because. Like, look at this. But yeah, so this is a recent design. I'll pop a picture on the screen of the pattern page, so you kind of can see the picture and you know what to look for when you're looking for it. So you're not, so you can go, is that the correct one or not? It'll be easier to spot that way because this isn't the one in the pattern photos. But at any rate, it's the exact same thing, just bigger. This is actually my largest size. What else do I need to tell you? So this yarn, which I did use in the original pattern as well, I used gray for the original pattern. So the yarn I used is Briggs & Little Tuffy, which is a wool nylon blend. It's worsted weight. I knit these on a 3.75mm needle. You may need to go up or down in needle size to get the correct gauge, which is in the pattern. So that's all available for you. The pattern is $6 on Ravelry or Etsy. If you would like to avail to this pattern and use a coupon code, you can use EP1, that's capital E, small p1, and I'll put the coupon code here on the screen for you. And you can use that on Ravelry. On Etsy, the price may already be $4.50 if it's not used the same coupon code on Etsy. And you can get your very own pattern to knit this. Got her done, made, also known as finished objects. So the next sock that I have designed and is published is called the Jocelyn socks. And again, part of the same cow. So we start off here with a folded cuff because the person who I designed this after does not like ribbing. So then you knit down here and you continue the pattern down the instep. And there's a short row heel here, a German short row heel. And then when you get down here, you start doing micro striping here, but you're doing a slip stitch pattern down here. And then you do the toe here. So this is also paid for pattern. It's $6 as well. I'll pop a pattern photo on the screen now. So this sock here, the Diana socks, starts off with some ribbing, moves into this lace pattern right here, which you do in a contrast color, as you can see. And then it moves into this lace instep and a cable in the back. And it's a heel flapping gusset. You move down the foot and then you move into the toe. So what I will do, just so you can see the cable and the lace a little better, is I'll move it down on the sock blocker and I'll turn it so that you can see it a little better. So this is actually the back of the sock here. And the front of the sock. And I'll pop a pattern photo on the screen for you as well. I did knit the Jocelyn socks in a different color with the heel flapping gusset from the Diana socks because the heels are actually interchangeable. So this is the Jocelyn sock with the heel flapping gusset, and I really like how it shows up in this yarn. This yarn is by Rhichard Devrieze. It's called Experiment 1, that's the colorway. And that's the stitch pattern there. I really like his yarn. This is also Rhichard Devrieze. The red is Patterns Croy. The dyer, I believe, is taking a break from dyeing. I've checked out their shop online, and that's what I had said. So I can't really give you a link to buy the yarn, but the yarn is in the pattern page on Ravelry and Etsy, so you can check that out. I'm pretty sure the colorway is called Sharkbait, and the blue is a mini that came with it, and that's called Island. What's on the go, also known as mouths and giveaways and other sort of administration things. So what I'm going to talk about in this episode is the Rainbow Socks Chronicles, which is hosted by Jooles Hill and Kelly of Lake Family Yarns. They both have YouTube channels. This cow started January of this year, and basically you're knitting a pair of socks every single month, and it's a certain color every month, and that gets you an entry. And if you knit a Jooles Hill pattern, I believe you get a second entry. And if you knit it using Lay Family Yarns yarn, I believe you get a third entry, if I'm not mistaken. At any rate, you'll have to check out their podcast to get the full details and to know if I'm lying to you right now, because I'm not entirely sure. So if I have forgotten something, can't hold me responsible. Have to check out their podcast. They are amazing makers. You really should check out their podcast if you haven't already. In the way of other knit-alongs and make-alongs and things like that, the Caddy Jack's Knits podcast, which is another great podcast, is hosting the Purl Soho half and half triangles wrap. I think they're using the hashtag #halfwrapcal on Instagram, and yeah, so basically they're knitting a half and half triangles wrap using linen quill, and you don't have to use linen quill. They have used linen quill, which I really want some linen quill. That might be my future. But at the same time, that cow runs, I think they started it last year in the fall, and I think it runs up to Rhinebeck this year, which that is kind of the point. They want to knit these to wear them at Rhinebeck. Like, instead of a Rhinebeck sweater, they want to knit and wear this sweater or this shawl to Rhinebeck, which I won't be going to Rhinebeck for a number of reasons, but I still want to knit it because it's a beautiful wrap. So, what other knit-alongs are going on? These socks. And these socks, the red ones here. I have knit these partly because I want to design, because that's what I do, but partly because I've sort of collaborated with the Northern Knits podcast. We schemed up this idea where we would do a sock along this summer, and I was going to knit socks, and I designed a pair after Jocelyn, which is one of the co-hosts. I designed a pair after Diana, which is the other co-host, and the third and bonus sock pattern is the Northern socks. Now, I've had this pattern sort of percolating in my head actually since last fall, but then last winter I got to work designing these socks, so I said, you know what, I have time to work in a third pair of socks for this knit along, so I got these on the go, and I absolutely love them. They're thick and cozy and warm. They're almost like slippers, and you could actually put leather on the sole of them and make them into slippers if you want, or you could wear them just like a thick sock around the house or in your boots, things like that. Another thing that I wanted to add to the giveaway section of this podcast, or this episode, is when I get to 100 subscribers, I will do a little giveaway. I'll draw one name out of the comments below, so I'll talk about that in the episode where I want you to comment. So just keep an eye out to the amount of subscribers, which it'll tell you below the video how many people have subscribed, if it's like 5 people or 50 people or whatever. But once we get to that, I'll do a real quick video. I'll just pop on and say, hey, we reached 100 subscribers. Write your name below, or tell me about yourself or something, and we will, draw out of all the comments below. And that's all you have to do then, for just comment something. So just keep an eye for that. You have to click like and subscribe, and click the little bell notification, because as soon as I get to 100 subscribers, I'm going to upload a video, and that little bell, if you have already clicked it, notification will pop up on your phone, your iPad, whatever device you're using, to tell you there's a new podcast out. Check out Marvellous Makes episode 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or whatever, and there's your chance to enter to win. I haven't chosen what prize I'm going to give out yet, so that'll be a surprise, but once I reach 100 subscribers, that is what I'll do. Let's have a yarn, also known as Let's Chat. A lot of podcasters at the end of their episode will have sort of a little knit and natter. So basically I thought at this point I would just more or less tell you a little bit about myself, and going forward in the next episodes, I would either tell you more about myself, or things going on in my life, or if people have questions, you can pop them in the comments, and I will pick from that and write them down as they come in. And then when I podcast again, I will answer some questions in those comments. So I'm a designer from Newfoundland, Canada, where I live with my family, and one of my 3 children I named this YouTube channel, this podcast, if you will, after, partly because it's kind of a punny name, and because I will talk to you about her in the next segment with my fiance. She was born early and has cerebral palsy as a result. And so I'll talk about her struggles, her triumphs, all kinds of sort of marvelous news, I'll call it. And so that's sort of why I named it Marvellous Makes, because her name is Marvel, and she's marvelous, and I make things, and they're marvelous. So that's kind of a Newfoundland word too. I mean, it's everywhere too, but it's a common word here to say, oh, that's marvelous, or something like that. So that's what we say here. And so a little about me as well. I'm going to be 39 soon. Don't ask me if I feel my age, because sometimes I feel a lot older than I am, and sometimes I don't. It all depends on the day. But I've been knitting since I've been like 10, so a while. Do the math there. And I've been designing, officially designing, probably a year and a half, but I really have been designing and making my own things. I just haven't been publishing patterns for, I would say, about 14 years, give or take. And gosh, I crochet as well. I do have one crochet pattern. It is a dishcloth, and I can just pop a link to that in the chummy up there, or in the drop down bar. And so I crochet a fair bit as well, but it's more like blankets and dishcloths, and although I am crocheting a sweater, so I'll probably bring that. When I bring it out and start working, it's kind of hibernating right now. You'll see it. It's going to be great when it's done, but I need a break from it. It's a lot of crochet. It's like a knee length-ish cardigan, inferior weight. I think I'm going to call that good for now, and leave something to talk about in another segment. So thanks for stopping by. If you want to stick around for the Marvelous News section, that's great. If it's not your jam, that's okay. And I'll see you next time. So this segment is called Marvelous News. This is a segment where I talk to you with my beloved, my fiance.
That's me.
Do you want to introduce yourself?
My name is Josh. I'm her beloved fiance.
And we'll talk to you about our youngest child and her triumphs and her struggles of having cerebral palsy. So I guess we'll start from the beginning, and kind of each episode we'll just kind of add to that story until we've got you caught up to speed, I guess. Yeah. And we'll add in photos of things just to sort of reference that time and sort of see her progression and growth, just to kind of add to the story in a visual way.
Well, we can't rob them of the experience of seeing a cute baby.
Oh, no, that's true. That's true, we can't. So, she was born July of 2019.
At 10:30 in the morning?
Yeah, she was a morning baby. And, well, we knew that we were going to have her early by 32 weeks gestation anyways, because of some rare complications during the pregnancy, and I was hospitalized for that, and so I was kind of there waiting to have her, and we didn't know exactly when it would be, but we knew it would be before 32 weeks because they had scheduled a C-section for that time if she hadn't come before then. It was a pretty scary time. We weren't sure really, because she was born so early, if she would even make it. So it was really a miracle that she's even here. So yeah, that's kind of where the name came from, actually, because a lot of people think that it's a Marvel reference to Marvel Comics, and it's not.
I mean, I wouldn't complain, but yeah, it has a better meaning than Marvel Comics.
It has a deeper meaning than that. So we had a name picked out when we were in our early stages of pregnancy, and as things progressed and complications happened, and the doctors kept coming in and saying, oh, it's a miracle you guys are here, and it's a miracle you're still pregnant, anyways. And they just kept saying it was just such a miraculous thing that, things were going on still, because they really thought, because I was admitted at 20 weeks, they really thought that we wouldn't make it even a week. So we decided she needed her own unique name. Mm-hmm. So we both started looking, and I had come across the name Marvel, and I thought at first too that maybe it has a Miss Marvel reference or something like that. And when I looked at the definition, the origin of the name, it actually was a popular name at the turn of the century for girls. It was never really intended to be a boy's name, although a lot of people think it's a boy's name and actually assume that she's a boy. But yeah, so I guess that's why Miss Marvel is a female in the comics, right? Because it's originally a girl's name, and Captain Marvel as well, right?
Yeah.
So I guess that's Marvel Comics had that right anyways.
Girl power.
Yeah, girl power. So anyways, we named her Marvel for that reason. It means miracle, which she is. So that's the meaning behind her name. And so what was your thoughts and feelings when I was in having her and you couldn't even be in there?
My first thought was,
Yeah, it was pretty scary, hey?
Yeah, well, it went from you getting your normal doctor's routine to them saying, yeah, it's time for the baby to be born. It's like, okay, so I've got to call your parents, my grandparents, and tell them, hey, the baby's coming today. Yeah. Well, when did that happen? Oh, 2 minutes ago.
Yeah. Yeah, so it was pretty abrupt. Mm-hmm. It was fast and furious, as they say. And so she was born, and, well, I was put asleep for the C-section because it was such a rushy thing. They didn't have time to do epidurals or any of that stuff. Yeah. So basically when I woke up, she was born, and so they told me when I woke up, because I immediately asked how she was. They said she came out flat, meaning that she wasn't breathing, she wasn't moving, she wasn't looking around, she wasn't doing anything. They wanted to do delayed cord clamping because that oftentimes yields a better result for the baby. So they did that as long as they could, which wasn't very long because she came out flat. So then they took her to the resus room where the resus team resuscitated her. And once she was stable, they let you come and see her. I wasn't awake then. So.
Yeah, and we should show them too the pictures of her in her little Ziploc bag.
Yeah, so they bagged her, is what they call it. And I mean, you can tell them that part because you were there to see all that.
So basically, they put her in a Ziploc, what looked like a Ziploc bag, and put a little bit of like tape around her hands and feet to seal it off and keep her body heat in. And I actually took a video where it shows like she's about the size of my hand.
Yeah.
And I mean, she came out at like 4 pounds 2 ounces,
which is big for a 29-weeker because she was born at 29 weeks gestation.
But she was so tiny. It's like I put my hand up and it's like, where'd the baby go?
Yeah, she was pretty tiny. Yeah. So when I woke up, they brought me into the NICU where I could see her. I was still in the hospital bed, like I still wasn't able to walk or anything at that point because I had pretty much just woken up from anesthesia. And she was so tiny. We have pictures of that too. We can insert that here. And I mean, I wanted to cry. I held back. I wanted to cry just because, I mean, people cry when they have a baby, but like...
I cried.
Yeah. I mean, I may have cried a little. I cried a lot later that night. But yeah, so that was, well, day 1 of life, as you say, in a NICU. And yeah, so we just watched her. They did what's called a 72-hour no handling policy. And they did what's called the brain care bundle, which they do for babies typically under 29 weeks, although she was 29 weeks and, was it 2 days? 3 days?
2 days.
2 days. She was born at, but because it was so close to 29 weeks, they did that just in case dates were off and things like that. So they did that specialized team to handle her. And yeah, so after 72 hours was up, which we just watched her and soaked up every minute we could, hey? And after that, when we could handle her, actually I think it was even before we handled her, the ultrasound team came in and did what's called a cranial ultrasound. So basically it's like a regular ultrasound, but for the child's head. It's I guess a less invasive way to get imaging. And of course they can leave her right in the isolette and do it right there. So basically we had come in and Josh's mom had already been in there when they were doing the cranial ultrasound, and they had already left when we were coming in, and they had said or your mom had said that the ultrasound tech kind of let out a little sigh when she was doing it. And your mom was like, well, thinking to yourself, well, what does that mean? Yeah. So we were kind of like, well, if something's going on, they'll tell us, right? So, and they have like morning meetings before, you know, like as they do their rounds, right? Kind of like in a regular hospital room, but just at bedside in the NICU. And so anyways, we held her for the first time. We can insert some photos here. And yeah, so we held her, and you know, of course we didn't know anything about the ultrasound at that point, but the next day, I guess once they got the results, because I guess a number of people need to comb over those images, and the next day we had come in and they asked me if I wanted to hold her again, so we did kangaroo care. And while I was holding her, the doctor that was on at that time had come over and asked how we were doing, and you know, just kind of the way she talked to us, kind of made me feel like there's something she wanted to say. There was something not right.
Yeah.
You know, you got that sense too?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And because I was doing kangaroo care with a 29-week premature baby on day 4 of life, I mean, you can't pick them up and put them down, pick them up, put them down. So they had just laid her on my chest. And I have photos of that as well. That's with her and her rainbow hat on it.
Yeah. Is the kangaroo care is the skin to skin?
Yes.
Just in case somebody doesn't
that's
know.
Right, yeah. So it's skin to skin. So they'll either put her inside my shirt or my dress or whatever I was wearing. Or like if you can unbutton or take off what you're wearing, they'll have you do that. You did that with her.
Yeah. It was like having a third boob.
So basically she had to essentially stay on me for as long as she could handle it. So I think that day was pretty long. I think it was like 3 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I laid there for pretty much 3 hours when she needed to go back in the isolette. And after that, we talked to the doctors and they said, all right, we'll bring you into this, like, I guess, meeting room.
Mm-hmm.
So we went in there and it was kind of surreal because I knew something life-changing was about to happen. And so she began to tell us that they did this cranial ultrasound and they had found 2 brain bleeds, a grade 1 and a grade 4 brain bleed. And she said a grade 1 is milder on the scale of brain bleeds, but still a brain bleed. It's still not it's still not good. Like even a grade 1 can cause issues. And then she had a grade 4 on the other side. The grade 4 was on her left side.
Yeah.
And the grade 1 was on her right side. And so that had caused some, I guess, stress and worry for us. Sorry, we had to readjust the camera there. So the angle's a little bit different, but so what were we saying? So she had been found to have 2 brain bleeds.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't actively bleeding. They could see that there was blood clots there. And basically, we walked out of there going, okay, now we wait.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't know what's wrong until things develop further.
Yeah, and the doctor had said she'd like to think and like to say that, you know, nothing will happen from it. There wouldn't be any issues from it, she said, but in her experience, she's never seen a case where there wasn't some type of health issue as a result. And she said that could be anything from vision issues, hearing issues, speech issues, learning issues. Mm-hmm. It could be physical issues. Like she did mention
motor skills.
Yeah, she did mention cerebral palsy.
Yeah.
She mentioned seizures, a number of things. She said it could be any of them. She said, I'd like to say it's going to be none of them, but the chances are slim that it's going to be nothing.
Yeah.
So she said there's probably going to be something, even if it's, a mild learning disability. But she said we won't know till something doesn't develop. So we just was like, okay, we wait. And so we did. And day by day went on in the NICU, and I think she was only, I don't even know if she was a week old when they were doing EEGs.
Yeah.
To determine if she was having seizures. And it was really hard for them to determine that because there isn't really a concrete thing to determine if somebody's had a seizure. Like they can, unless they catch one during an EEG, which it's hard to do. But eventually they did see what's called a marker.
Yeah. Which
basically tells you that the person either had a seizure or will have a seizure. So they weren't sure again if it was going to repeat, if it was just that she had seizures recently. So we were just, again, waiting and watching and making note of what was happening with her. Yeah. And eventually she was put on seizure medication. Yeah. Phenobarbital it was.
Yeah.
And that seemed to help. But that was that was a big step too.
For
you
sure,
know, to
yeah.
have a baby that wasn't even supposed to be born at that point. I think she was she a month or 6 weeks old, something thereabout, when they, probably closer to 6 weeks old when they put her on phenobarbital.
Yeah.
So we were watching her for about 6 weeks having seizures, and them doing EEGs and cranial ultrasounds and blood tests, and you know, she being poked and prodded.
Yep.
I mean, it was torture for us, you know, to see her. I can only imagine how it would feel being a small baby and having all this stuff done, but it was just torturous in every way, I think.
Yeah.
So, at any rate, she was put on phenobarbital, and that seemed to really help. She was doing really well, and a couple weeks later, she was released from a NICU.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
We got to take her home.
we did. She had a little graduation ceremony.
Yep.
We'll insert a photo here of that because it was too stinking cute.
Yes, we take tons of pictures of
Yeah.
everything.
Yes, we do. So, so that was sort of the short of the 2-month NICU stay, because it was pretty much 2 months, eh?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, she had all kinds of things like eye tests done and
Yeah.
blood work.
I think she had more tests done in those 2 months than I've had done in my life.
Yeah, I'd say, hey, I mean, they were always doing something. Yeah, so I think that was, that's pretty much the main events of the NICU, really. It was just all kinds of tests, and
Yep.
and I mean, you know, I was breastfeeding while pumping because she couldn't breastfeed at first. So that was a bit of a journey in and of itself, trying to pump and get milk for her, which I didn't have a problem with production, but it was just like, it was different because I had just latched on and breastfed my other children, and this time I have to pump because she can't nurse, right? So that was
And the nurses just looked at me funny when I tried to breastfeed, but I just said I was trying to help.
that's right. Tell them the story about the dish liquid.
Oh, I think you tell it better.
Oh my goodness. So I went to a pumping room where it's just like a private room where you bring in a pump and you pump breast milk. And they have these little tiny vials, not vials I suppose, but it looks like a very tiny baby bottle, a very skinny one about that big. And you can put like a nipple on it. They have those there that you put on it. And but it can also hook up to a pump, so you can pump directly into it, and then you just take, you know, it has a blue ring and a nipple that you put on it. So, or you can close it. They have what's called
A little cap.
Yeah, it's like a snap bottle, they call it. So you can just snap it shut. So for her, because she wasn't drinking from a bottle, she had an NG feeding tube, which is, in case you're not sure, it's a tube that goes through the nose and into the belly and feeds her that way. So, which you'll see in the photos, that's the tube that they taped to her face. So basically, I was in there pumping and he was there with me. And when you're done pumping, you wash up your equipment and you bring the milk down to the baby and so on and so forth, or you bring it to the freezer if you're freezing it. But it was time for her to feed, and they say it's best for them to have it like fresh within, I think it's an hour of being pumped, isn't it? So, and she was due to be fed. So if she didn't have it then, she wouldn't need it for another 3 hours.
Yeah.
So I said, well, I'm just as well to rush over there and get it for her now, or give it to her now, so she can have it fresh because it's better for her. So Josh said, I'll wash up, no problem. So he said, you go on and bring that over to her. So they have, like, you know, Palmolive green dish liquid. So they have that in all the rooms by the sink to wash up your equipment with. And in this room, I guess there was no dish liquid. So he went to one of the bigger rooms that, you know, tends to have more supplies, unbeknownst to me. Brought my equipment over there to be washed. And what he did, being, you know, the great guy he is, he decided to fill up one of the Snappy bottles with green dish liquid to bring back to the other small pump room so that there would be dish liquid to use over there. But what he did was, once the equipment was clean, he brought it in, and you have it in almost like a plastic bowl, and they give you like a hair net to put over it so no, I guess, dust or things get on it. You can leave it beside the baby's bed. And so he brought in the equipment and a snappy bottle with green dish liquid. And usually when you see somebody coming in with this equipment in a snap bottle, it's breast milk and they just pumped. So he brought it in, and what did you say?
I said I tried to pump, but all I could get out was this green sludge.
And what was it the nurse said to you?
I don't remember the exact words.
She said to him, if you're pumping, you got problems. And if you're pumping and you're getting that, you got bigger problems.
Yeah.
So anyways, we all had a big laugh for that. But the sludge ended up back in the correct room.
Yeah.
And the baby was not fed green sludge.
No babies were fed dish liquid in this episode.
So, anyways, that's the episode title. My goodness. So, yeah. I think that's a good, I guess, description of our NICU life. It was pretty much get up, go to a NICU, stay till, who knows, midnight, 2 o'clock in the morning, go back, sleep, get up and do it again.
Not necessarily in that order.
Yeah, so if you have any questions about our NICU stay or comments or anything at all, leave a comment below, and maybe in our next episode in the Marvellous News, we can answer some questions if you have any questions about her NICU stay and how that was, or, that kind of stuff. I think that's it for now.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching.
Bye.
Bye.